Hi, I'm Lisa Michaels, and welcome to another edition of Accountability, live with Lisa Michaels. And this is a message I'm doing exclusively for the people in Oregon, the Oregon voters. There is a wonderful gentleman who stood up to the liberal, elite, corrupt media 2 years ago when he was kicked out of the Willamette Week interview, the endorsement interview. They had all the candidates there that were running in the Republican primary asking them questions. And they really only had interest in two of them that had a lot of money that came in late to the game. After Mark Callahan, Joe Ray Perkins was the other gal. She was on the speakerphone exchange. It's pretty startling. It takes you back to those days when you might have gotten called to the principal's office and chastised, or been called on the carpet by your boss, or been fired. It is just you feel for the guy. Here he is standing up valiantly to respect his opponent, and sees that the reporter, every time his opponent Joe Ray Perkins is talking from the little speakerphone in the middle of the table while the other four candidates are sitting at the table, one of the reporters is writing blah, 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 blah. Like, I could care less what she has to say. So he calls her out on it, and they get embarrassed. So then they ask some crazy global warming scam question and try to belittle him, and then they got frustrated, so they kick him out of it. But it's all on videotape. It was so astounding that Fox and Friends had him on, interviewed him, and people were so inspired by his valiant effort to defend his political opponent that they flooded his mailbox or his campaign with money. Well, it was the last minute, and most people had already placed their bets on one of his competitors in the primary, so he lost the primary. But this year, 2 years later, apparently people still remember, he only raised $10,000 in the primary and ran against, I believe, 3 other people, one of whom, somebody with the last name of Carpenter, apparently spent like $100,000 of his own money, and went on record in Redmond saying that he would back whoever it was, and he would even go out on the campaign trail for whoever won the primary. I'm sure assuming that he would win, just kind of like Jeb and all the other candidates assumed that they would win and not Donald Trump, so that Donald Trump would continue to want to spend his millions to get them elected. So that whole take a vow that you'll support the eventual nominee was all to get Trump to agree. And then when Trump wins, no integrity, zero integrity for any of those, for John Kasich and for, sadly, tragically, I was very disappointed after years of supporting him, the entire Bush family, except for George P. Bush, who I believe is supporting Donald Trump. In any case, I digress. So he wins. He beats these other 3 in the primary, and I think it's largely because people saw what a genuinely sincere, honest candidate Mark Callahan is. And one of the things I learned while I was in Oregon, sadly and tragically, is they only want to help candidates that they can manipulate if they are elected. So if you don't have something in your background that they can come to you and blackmail you with, or they don't believe that you can be coerced or bribed into doing their bidding, this is the elitists, this is on a local level as well as on a federal level, then they have no interest in backing your campaign. So they don't call you a viable candidate. If you're not labeled a viable candidate, you get $0 from the people that run these campaigns, and you get zero support from the media. It's just completely ridiculous. So I have a policy. I've managed 10 political campaigns. I have a policy. I only back and I only manage the campaigns of candidates I feel are genuinely honest, sincere, and beyond reproach. And I feel very strongly that Mark Callahan is, without a doubt, a very honorable, sincere, genuine man of God as well, who will go to Washington, D.C. and work on behalf of you in Oregon, not on behalf of the elitists that want to control him like a puppet. So I would encourage you to please send $10, $15, $20, $25, $30, wherever you can, to Mark Callahan's campaign so that we can buy more radio time. You may have heard it. We're buying more radio time, and we'd like to buy some television time. I'm helping them with that effort. So please help Mark Callahan. I'm Lisa Michaels, endorsing Mark Callahan for the U.S. Senate to defeat Ron Wyden and send another career politician who, to my knowledge, has done very little, if anything, in the private sector, has no real world, has lost complete sense of what it's like to be an average person in this society. And he is relocated to New York City, I don't know how many years ago. And he doesn't even live really in Oregon. He's completely lost touch with Oregonians. So please, do what you can. Send whatever small amount. It all adds up to help Mark Callahan win this election.
And caught on camera, this is what the press is really like when you're not watching. Watch this.
I see what you're writing down there. You just wrote down blah, 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 blah for everything that Jo Rae said. Jo Rae is a respectable woman.
Mark?
Why are you not respecting her by writing blah, 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 blah on your notepad?
Ooh, busted. That Senate candidate calling it as he sees it. He joins us live this hour.
You want to talk about disrespect? I see what you're writing down there. You just wrote down blah, 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 blah for everything that Jo Rae said. Jo Rae is a respectable woman.
Mark?
Why are you not respecting her by writing blah, 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 blah on your notepad?
Mark, do you believe that's a myth or a reality?
It's a myth.
It is?
Yes.
Okay.
Where are you on the Easter Bunny?
What's that?
I said, where are you on the Easter Bunny?
I'll stipulate.
Are these really the questions that I was called here to answer to quote movie quote? Really?
Representative,
I called you out for putting blah, 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 blah on your notepad, and now you're asking me questions like this?
Oof, that was Mark Callahan. He's running for U.S. Senate in the state of Oregon, and he got into it with a bunch of editorial writers at a local weekly paper for their behavior in a meeting with Republican Senate candidates seeking the paper's endorsement. Callahan was later tossed out of the meeting for, quote, not following the rules, whatever that means. He joins us now to tell us what happened. Mr. Callahan, thanks for coming on.
Good morning, Tucker. How you doing?
So were they as awful as they seemed?
Yes, they were.
Huh, because they seemed totally supercilious and arrogant, and as you pointed out, thin-skinned from beginning to end. But I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe the video was misleading, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I think they were on a power trip, personally. I mean, it was all about control to them, and I think they were just on a power trip, and they were basically trying to control the meeting. And it's a fairly liberal paper, and they were basically trying to manhandle us Republicans out here in Oregon. And it was not something I could stand for, especially when they were dishonoring a fellow candidate.
Working for some sad little weekly paper in Oregon, they're on a power trip.
Yeah, exactly.
Perspective in order. So I was really struck by the exchange on global warming or climate change, whatever they're calling it now. He asked you, I thought, a totally unfair question: is it a myth or not? I mean, what does that even mean? And then, rather than digesting what you said, he just dismissed you as a wacko.
Exactly. Well, I mean, that's what they do out here in Oregon. I mean, Oregon has gotten kind of the reputation of kind of being a liberal state. I mean, in my opinion, Oregon is kind of a red state with blue islands, with
Yes.
blue islands being kind of the major cities.
Yes.
But basically, I mean, it's gotcha questions, basically, is what they were doing. And the Easter Bunny question, I mean, I had to quote from that movie, A Few Good Men, and the Jack Nicholson quote, you know, and by saying, you know, these are really the questions that I was called here to answer. But basically, they were very condescending, very controlling. And as I said, I'm an Eagle Scout myself. I grew up learning about honor and integrity and character. And I just could not let them do what they were doing to a fellow candidate in the race, Jo Rae Perkins, in terms of her not even being there. She was on the speakerphone at the time. And I just couldn't let that stand. I mean, it just came from within me in order to say something, because what they were doing is acting dishonorably.
Yeah. Well, here's their response. This is from the paper, the Willamette Week. Our goal is not to provide equal time to all candidates, but to explore questions that we think matter most to our readers. Not everyone likes to follow the rules, and on a rare occasion, we have to ask candidates to leave the endorsement interviews. That's what happened when Callahan came to our office. What was the rule that you supposedly broke?
To this day, I really don't know. I mean, honestly, we've been to other candidate forums, the 5 of us, and all around the state, and we've always gotten equal time to answer questions. But it just didn't seem like they were actually doing that this time. And apparently, that I stepped out of their control norm or their totalitarian regime that they were controlling in the room there. And I guess it kind of irked them. But I stood up for what I believe in terms of defending a fellow candidate.
So if you don't believe that the Earth is getting warmer every year as the result of industrial progress or carbon emissions, then you're like mentally ill.
Well, according to them, apparently. But I mean, I'm obviously not mentally ill. I believe, it's called different things over the years. It's called what? Global warming. And then the liberals changed it to climate change. I personally just call it weather myself.
Yeah,
but
weather.
Yeah, exactly. But the point is they were kind of trying to call me out and kind of ask one of those gotcha questions.
Yeah, that's not really a question, it's more a statement. I agree with you on Oregon, by the way. If you took out Eugene and Portland, it would be Wyoming. Such a great state. Thanks a lot. Good luck.
Well, thank you.
Coming on this morning.
I'm Mark Callahan, and I approve this message. I am fed up with crony career politicians raising our taxes, denying us rights, shipping our jobs out of Oregon. I'm running to represent all Oregonians by replacing Ron Wyden in the U.S. Senate. Senator Wyden supports the TPP, which is NAFTA on steroids, and will ship our jobs overseas. Senator Wyden voted to deny our Second Amendment rights. Senator Wyden voted for the Iran deal. Senator Wyden helped draft our 74,000-page tax code, and Senator Wyden is responsible for passing Obamacare. In Washington, D.C., I will propose and support a fair and flat tax. I will support enacting a balanced budget amendment because, as Americans, we have to balance our checkbook. The federal government should have to do the same. Senator Wyden makes his home in New York City and no longer represents our Oregon values. Vote Mark Callahan for U.S. Senate, and I will make America safe again. I need your help to spread my message to all Oregonians by donating today at CallahanForOregon.com, paid for by Callahan for U.S. Senate. I'm Mark Callahan, and I approve this message. For 20 years, Ron Wyden has put corporate donors and lobbyists first. He continually votes against our Constitution. He voted against your Second Amendment rights. His vote passed Obamacare. He voted in favor of the Iran deal while taking donations from foreign entities who want to mine uranium in eastern Oregon. He voted for the Fast Track Authority to enable the TPP, aka NAFTA on steroids, that will ship our jobs overseas. He has written and passed legislation that enables crony capitalism. Ron Wyden has stolen our children's futures, and it is time to retire him to his New York home. My name is Mark Callahan, and I am committed to representing all Oregonians. I will fight for your constitutional rights in D.C. I will reverse the crony capitalism by establishing a lower flat tax for all businesses and citizens that will replace our current 74,000-page tax code. To do so, I need your help to spread my message to all Oregonians by donating today at CallahanForOregon.com, paid for by Callahan for U.S. Senate. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. God bless. I'm Lisa Michaels. Join me again for my next show, Accountability, Live with Lisa.